James Reynolds had worked as an entertainment venue safety inspector for the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries for 19 years. At 44, he was the senior inspector for the Seattle region, responsible for ensuring that theaters, concert halls, sports arenas, and other entertainment facilities complied with fire safety codes, building regulations, capacity limits, and accessibility requirements. His job meant visiting venues unannounced, documenting violations, issuing citations, and in severe cases, shutting down facilities that posed immediate danger to the public. He had authority to close any venue operating unsafely, and his inspections were thorough and uncompromising. Venue owners and managers feared surprise visits from James Reynolds because he found violations others missed and held businesses accountable for protecting their customers. Tonight, James wasn't working. It was Friday evening, and he'd promised his wife Angela and their 2 children, Marcus age 12 and Zoe age 9, a family movie night. They'd decided on the new animated film showing at Grandview Cinema, a mid-sized theater chain in North Seattle that advertised itself as a premium movie-going experience with comfortable seating and upscale concessions. James had purchased tickets online that afternoon for the 7:15 showing. The confirmation email showed 4 seats together in the center section, exactly what he'd wanted for the family. They arrived at Grandview Cinema at 6:50, giving them plenty of time to get snacks and settle in before the previews started. The theater lobby was moderately busy with families and couples heading to various showings. James noticed the facility looked well maintained from the entrance, modern decor, clean floors, digital displays showing showtimes. As a safety inspector, he couldn't help but observe these details even when off-duty. They approached the ticket counter where a young employee, maybe 19 or 20, stood ready to scan tickets. James pulled up the confirmation email on his phone. "Good evening. Reynolds Party. 4 tickets for the 7:15 showing." The young employee scanned the barcode and looked at his computer screen. "Just a moment, please." He picked up a phone and spoke quietly into it, glancing at James and his family with an uncomfortable expression. After a brief conversation, a man in his mid-40s emerged from the office area behind the counter. His name tag identified him as Kevin Barrett, theater manager. Barrett's eyes swept over James and his family with an expression that James recognized immediately from years of experiencing subtle racism. It was a look of surprise and discomfort at seeing a black family in a space Barrett apparently considered primarily for white customers. "Mr. Reynolds, I'm Kevin Barrett, the theater manager. I'm afraid there's an issue with your tickets." "What kind of issue?" "I purchased them online this afternoon and received confirmation." Barrett's tone shifted to one of forced patience, like he was explaining something obvious to someone slow to understand. "Your tickets are for the 7:15 showing, which is unfortunately sold out. Our system sometimes continues selling tickets even after capacity is reached. It's a technical glitch we're working to fix." James looked past Barrett to the digital display board showing current capacity for all films. The 7:15 showing of the animated movie they'd planned to see showed 73% capacity, not sold out. "The board shows the theater is only 3/4 full. That doesn't seem sold out." Barrett glanced at the display with visible irritation. "That board isn't always accurate. The actual theater is at capacity. I can't allow you to enter a sold-out showing." Angela spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "We have confirmed tickets that we paid for. You're saying you oversold the showing and now you're refusing us entry. I'm saying there was a technical error. I can offer you tickets to a later showing or a refund. We don't want a later showing. Our children have school tomorrow and need to be home at a reasonable time. We want to see the movie we purchased tickets for." Barrett's expression hardened. "I'm explaining that's not possible. The showing is full. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the Cascade Theater on Aurora Avenue. They usually have more availability for walk-in customers." James felt anger building, but kept his voice controlled. His children were watching this interaction, and he wanted them to see him handle discrimination with dignity rather than anger. "We're not walk-in customers. We have purchased tickets with confirmed seats, and the Cascade Theater you're suggesting is in a much less desirable neighborhood. Are you directing us there for a reason? I'm offering alternatives since your requested showing is unavailable, but it's not unavailable. Your capacity board shows significant availability. What you're really saying is that you don't want us in your theater." Barrett's face flushed. "I don't appreciate accusations. I've explained the situation. You can accept alternative tickets or a refund, but you're not entering the 7:15 showing." Young Marcus, James's son, spoke quietly to his father. "Dad, why won't he let us see the movie? We have tickets." The question broke James's heart. His children were experiencing explicit discrimination, being turned away from a family movie despite having legitimate tickets, and witnessing their father being treated with disrespect and dishonesty. James made a decision. He pulled out his work identification badge from his wallet and held it where Barrett could see it clearly. "Mr. Barrett, I'm James Reynolds, Senior Entertainment Venue Safety Inspector for Washington State Department of Labor and Industries. I inspect theaters and other venues for code compliance. I'm here tonight as a private citizen with my family, but your refusal of service despite our having valid tickets suggests discriminatory practices. I'm documenting this interaction, and I'll be returning Monday morning in my official capacity to conduct a comprehensive inspection of this facility." Barrett's face went from flushed to pale. "You're a state inspector?" "Yes, and you've just discriminated against a state employee and his family. You falsely claimed a showing was sold out when your own capacity monitors show otherwise. You've directed us to a theater in a different neighborhood for no legitimate business reason. These actions suggest racial discrimination in violation of Washington public accommodations law." "I wasn't discriminating. There really is a capacity issue." "Then you'll have no problem when I inspect your capacity management systems Monday morning. I'll also be reviewing your ticketing policies, your incident reports, and interviewing your staff about how customers are treated." Angela added her voice. "Kevin, you saw a black family and immediately assumed we didn't belong in your premium theater. You invented a reason to turn us away and suggested we go to a theater in a rougher neighborhood. That's textbook discrimination." Other customers in the lobby had stopped to watch the confrontation. Several were pulling out phones to record. A white couple with children approached James. "Excuse me, we couldn't help overhearing. We just bought tickets for the same showing you're trying to attend. The employee told us plenty of seats were available. If they're claiming it's sold out to you, that's obviously not true." The husband showed his phone with a confirmation for 4 tickets to the 7:15 showing, purchased just minutes earlier. Barrett realized he was trapped. He'd claimed the showing was sold out, but other customers were openly contradicting him. He'd been caught in a discriminatory lie. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding. "Let me check the system again." Barrett returned to the computer and made a show of reviewing the ticketing system. After a moment, he spoke with forced politeness. "It appears there was indeed a system error. Your tickets are valid. I apologize for the confusion. So we can enter the theater?" James asked, his tone making clear he wasn't accepting the face-saving excuse. "Yes, enjoy your movie." James gathered his family, and they proceeded into the theater. But the evening was ruined. Marcus and Zoe were confused and upset. Angela was angry, and James was furious that his attempt to have a simple family evening had been derailed by racism. They sat through the movie, but nobody could focus on the screen. James kept thinking about what had happened and what it meant. This wasn't just personal discrimination against his family. This was a business pattern. Barrett's comfort with lying about capacity and directing them to a different theater suggested he'd done this before, perhaps many times, turning away black and other minority families to maintain what he considered the appropriate demographic for his premium theater. As a safety inspector, James's job was ensuring physical safety of entertainment venues, but he also had broader authority to investigate business practices that created public safety issues. A theater that discriminated in admissions might also discriminate in how it treated customers during emergencies, potentially creating life-threatening situations. The movie ended at 9 o'clock. James's family left quietly, his children subdued. The fun family evening transformed into a lesson about racism they were too young to fully understand. In the car driving home, Marcus asked the question that had been bothering him. "Dad, if you're an inspector, can you do something about that manager? He was mean to us." "Yes, son, I can do something. That manager discriminated against us, and I'm going to make sure he's held accountable. Not because he was mean to our family specifically, but because if he's doing this to us, he's probably been doing it to other families who didn't have the power to fight back." Angela looked at James with an expression that mixed anger, sadness, and determination. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to inspect that theater from top to bottom, and I'm going to find every single code violation, every safety issue, every regulatory failure. Because if Kevin Barrett is comfortable discriminating against customers, I guarantee his theater has other problems that he's been ignoring or hiding." Monday morning at 8:30, James arrived at Grandview Cinema in his official capacity. He wore his inspector identification, clearly visible, carried his tablet for documenting violations, and was accompanied by 2 other inspectors from his team. He'd also notified the Seattle Fire Department that he was conducting an inspection and requested their participation for fire safety assessments. Kevin Barrett was in his office when James and the inspection team entered. The look on Barrett's face showed he'd been dreading this moment since Friday night. "Mr. Barrett, I'm here to conduct a comprehensive safety and code compliance inspection of this facility. I'll need access to all areas, including projection rooms, electrical systems, emergency exits, capacity documentation, and employee training records. Barrett tried to maintain composure. Of course, though I should mention that we had our regular inspection just 6 months ago and passed with no significant violations. Regular inspections are scheduled and focus on specific areas. This is a comprehensive, unannounced inspection covering all aspects of venue safety and operations. It will take most of the day. James and his team began their inspection systematically. They started with the most visible areas and quickly found problems. Emergency exit signs that weren't properly illuminated, fire extinguishers that were expired or improperly mounted, accessible seating for disabled patrons that didn't meet required specifications. But the serious violations were deeper. In the projection rooms, James found electrical systems that hadn't been properly maintained, creating potential fire hazards. Ventilation systems that weren't functioning to code, creating air quality issues. Emergency lighting systems that were inoperative, meaning if power failed during a showing, patrons would be trapped in complete darkness. The capacity documentation was particularly troubling. Barrett's theater advertised premium seating with generous space, but James's measurements showed they'd actually exceeded safe capacity limits by installing extra seats that blocked emergency egress routes. The aisles weren't wide enough to meet fire code for rapid evacuation. Employee training records revealed that staff hadn't received required emergency procedure training. Many employees didn't know evacuation protocols or how to operate emergency equipment. This created immediate danger, because in an emergency, untrained staff could cause panic and casualties. James documented everything with photos, measurements, and detailed notes. Each violation was categorized by severity. Minor violations could be corrected with citations and follow-up inspections. Major violations required immediate correction. Critical violations that posed immediate danger to public safety triggered authority to close the facility until corrections were made. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, James had documented 47 violations across all categories. 12 were critical violations that individually justified closure. The theater was operating in a condition that endangered every customer who entered. James called Barrett to his office area for a closing conference. Barrett looked defeated, knowing what was coming. "Mr. Barrett, this inspection has revealed systematic failure to maintain safe operations. I've documented 47 violations of state safety codes and regulations. 12 of those are critical violations posing immediate danger to the public." James handed Barrett a written notice. "Under authority granted by Washington state law, I'm ordering immediate closure of Grandview Cinema until all critical violations are corrected and re-inspection confirms safe operations. You must cease operations immediately. Any customers currently in the building must be safely evacuated. Failure to comply with this closure order is a criminal offense." Barrett's voice was strained. "You're closing my theater over violations that you're claiming exist. I'm not claiming violations exist. They exist. They're documented with photos and measurements. And yes, I'm closing this theater because it's dangerous. You've been operating a facility that could kill people in an emergency. Blocked exits, non-functional emergency lighting, exceeded capacity limits, untrained staff. If there was a fire or other emergency, people would die. This is retaliation for Friday night. You're using your position to punish me for that misunderstanding." James kept his voice level and professional. "This inspection was prompted by your discrimination Friday night. Yes, but the violations I found are real and dangerous. Your facility fails basic safety standards. If you believe my findings are incorrect, you have appeal rights through the state administrative process. But until those appeals are heard, this theater remains closed. Closing will destroy my business. We'll lose revenue. Customers will go elsewhere. Our reputation will be ruined. Then you should have maintained safe operations and treated all customers with equal respect. Your discrimination revealed that you run a careless operation. The safety violations prove it." James left Grandview Cinema that afternoon and filed his inspection report with the state. The report detailed all violations and justified the closure order. He also filed a separate complaint with the Washington State Human Rights Commission regarding the discriminatory refusal of service Friday night, attaching witness statements from the white couple who'd contradicted Barrett's false capacity claim. Within 24 hours, the closure order became public record. Local media picked up the story because theater closures were unusual and concerning for public safety. The coverage revealed that Grandview Cinema had been closed by state inspectors for critical safety violations, including blocked emergency exits and exceeded capacity limits. Several news outlets connected the closure to the discrimination incident after James's complaint became public record. Stories emerged with headlines like "Theater closed after manager discriminated against state inspector's family" and "Discrimination reveals dangerous safety violations at Seattle Cinema." The coverage prompted other customers to come forward with their own experiences at Grandview Cinema. 7 black families contacted the Human Rights Commission to report being turned away or given poor service at the theater, despite having valid tickets.
3 described being told showings were full when they later learned seats had been available. Others described being seated in undesirable locations despite better seats being empty, or receiving hostile treatment from staff. The pattern was undeniable. Kevin Barrett had been systematically discriminating against black customers for an extended period, likely years. His comfort with lying to James's family about capacity suggested this was routine practice, not an isolated incident. Grandview Cinema remained closed for 6 weeks while ownership attempted to correct the safety violations. The corrections were expensive, requiring electrical system upgrades, capacity reductions meaning removing seats they'd illegally installed, new emergency lighting systems, and comprehensive staff training programs. The closure cost the business approximately $380,000 in lost revenue plus $220,000 in repair and upgrade costs. The financial impact was severe, and the reputational damage was worse. Many customers chose to patronize other theaters rather than return to a facility that had been closed for safety violations and accused of racial discrimination. 3 months after the closure, Grandview Cinema's parent company made an announcement. They were terminating Kevin Barrett's employment and implementing new policies across all their theater locations to prevent discrimination and ensure safety compliance. Barrett tried to find work managing other entertainment venues but discovered that being fired for discrimination and having presided over a safety closure made him essentially unemployable in the industry. He eventually left Seattle and took a job in retail management, a significant step down from theater management. The white couple who'd spoken up during the Friday night discrimination incident, David and Michelle Carson, reached out to James through the Human Rights Commission. They wanted to apologize for not doing more in the moment and to offer their testimony for any proceedings against Barrett. James met with them at a coffee shop. David spoke first. "We've been thinking about that night constantly. We saw what that manager did to your family, and we knew it was wrong, but we didn't do enough to stop it." Michelle added, "We have 2 kids about the same age as yours. If someone treated us that way, we'd hope other people would stand up for us. We should have demanded that the manager let you in, not just contradicted his lie." James appreciated their reflection, but assured them they'd help significantly. "You spoke up when you didn't have to. You provided witness testimony that proved Barrett was lying. That was important, and it took courage. Still, as white people, we benefit from not facing what you faced. We bought tickets minutes before you tried to use yours, and nobody questioned us or claimed anything was sold out. That privilege comes with responsibility to call out discrimination when we see it." The conversation stayed with James. The Carsons represented allies who understood that witnessing discrimination carried obligation to act, not just observe. Their willingness to reflect on their own response and commit to doing more was exactly what racial justice required from white people. 6 months after the closure and reopening of Grandview Cinema under new management, James received an award from the Washington State NAACP for his role in exposing discrimination and safety violations that had endangered the public. The award recognized that his inspection hadn't been personal retaliation, but professional accountability. In his acceptance speech, James addressed both the discrimination and the safety issues. "When Kevin Barrett refused my family entry to a movie showing, he thought he was dealing with customers he could dismiss without consequence. He didn't know I had authority to inspect his facility and hold him accountable for safety violations. But the real issue isn't that he discriminated against a state inspector. It's that he'd been discriminating against black families for years, and his discrimination was connected to broader negligence. A manager comfortable lying to customers about capacity was also comfortable ignoring safety codes. Discrimination revealed dangerous operations that put everyone at risk." James continued, "My job is protecting public safety at entertainment venues. Every person who enters a theater, concert hall, or arena deserves to be safe. When I discovered Barrett's theater had blocked exits, exceeded capacity, and failed emergency systems, I had an obligation to close it. The fact that I discovered these violations because Barrett discriminated against my family doesn't make the violations less serious. It just means discrimination led to accountability that should have happened years ago." The case prompted Washington State to implement new protocols for entertainment venue inspections. Facilities with discrimination complaints would receive enhanced scrutiny during safety inspections, recognizing that discriminatory business practices often correlated with safety negligence. 5 years after closing Grandview Cinema, James was promoted to Director of Entertainment Venue Safety for Washington State, overseeing inspectors across the state. Under his leadership, the department developed training programs helping inspectors recognize connections between discriminatory practices and safety violations. He also worked with civil rights organizations to create reporting mechanisms allowing discrimination victims to trigger safety inspections. The logic was sound. Businesses that discriminated against customers were more likely to have safety violations because both reflected disregard for public welfare. 10 years after the incident, James was invited to speak at a national conference on entertainment venue safety. He used the Grandview Cinema case as a teaching example for how discrimination and safety could intersect. "When my family was discriminated against at a movie theater, I was angry and hurt, But as a safety inspector, I also recognized that Kevin Barrett's comfort with lying to customers revealed broader operational problems. I inspected his theater and found it was a death trap. Blocked exits, non-functional emergency systems, exceeded capacity. If there'd been a fire, people would have died. The lesson for safety professionals is that discrimination is a red flag for other problems. A business operator willing to violate civil rights laws is likely violating safety laws too. Both reflect the same attitude. Rules don't apply to me, customers don't matter, and I can cut corners without consequences. James concluded his presentation with a personal reflection. My son Marcus asked me if I could do something about the manager who was mean to our family. I told him I could, and I did, but I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because Barrett's theater was dangerous, and closing it protected everyone who would have entered that facility. My authority as an inspector gave me power to hold Barrett accountable, not just for discrimination, but for endangering the public. That's what power should be used for, protecting people who can't protect themselves, and ensuring businesses serve everyone safely and equally. The presentation received a standing ovation from the safety professionals in attendance. Several approached James afterward to share their own experiences of finding safety violations at facilities with discrimination complaints. Kevin Barrett, in a later interview about workplace discrimination and its consequences, offered reflection on his actions. I thought I was maintaining my theater's atmosphere by being selective about customers. I saw black families as people who didn't fit the premium experience I wanted to provide, so I lied about capacity, directed them elsewhere, and made them feel unwelcome. I didn't know James Reynolds was a state inspector when I discriminated against his family. But that's not why what I did was wrong. It was wrong because discrimination is always wrong. The fact that he had authority to inspect my facility just meant I faced consequences. That inspection revealed I'd been negligent about safety for years. I'd installed extra seats beyond capacity, ignored maintenance, and failed to train staff. Those violations endangered everyone, not just the black families I discriminated against. I deserved to lose my position and my career, but more importantly, the public deserved protection from my dangerous operations. For James Reynolds and his family, the incident remained a painful memory of racism encountered during what should have been a simple family evening. But it also demonstrated how discrimination could trigger accountability that protected entire communities. Barrett had refused entry to a family he'd profiled as undesirable. That family happened to include someone with authority to inspect his operations and close his dangerous facility. The discrimination led to discovery of violations that endangered thousands of people who'd attended movies at Grandview Cinema, never knowing they were in a death trap. That was the power of accountability in action. Not revenge against one discriminator, but systematic exposure of negligence that protected everyone who would have been harmed by Barrett's continued operations. And across Washington state, entertainment venues now knew that discrimination might trigger the kind of comprehensive inspection that revealed all their hidden violations. That knowledge made managers think twice before treating customers differently based on race, because the customer they discriminated against might be the person with authority to end their business. Kevin Barrett had refused the state inspector's family entry to a movie theater. His discrimination destroyed his career, closed his facility, and revealed dangers that could have killed people. That was the cost of racism intersecting with regulatory authority, a cost Barrett had earned through years of discrimination and negligence.
Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.